affixes. Geist the Saint Traff does. No, Moonstopper, we haven't added him yet. We're considering a green splash. You're talking about the Cryptic? One of doesn't really stretch it. It's one of the reasons why I only run the one of. So you can look at all the, excuse me, let's look at all the blue, white, black hexproof creatures that are possible. And I'd like it to be, I mean, like you've got, so what do you got? You got Geist. Geist is great. I don't own any. Is he still ridiculous? Card's way too expensive still. Even had 2 printings on Moto. It didn't make it cheaper. They want $15 for one. I'm not buying. I'm not buying. Ojitai. Dragon Lord Ojitai has had 1 printing. He's not hexproof. Excuse me. He would not count. He has to literally have the wording hexproof. It can't be something like Dragon Lord Ojitai. Dragon Lord Ojitai has hexproof. It has to be, as long as. It has to literally be, it has hexproof. Stalker is an option. Lazav is an option. I've been looking at this guy. Because he's basically, well, the body's not good enough. I mean, you have to kill something. It's too specific. I like the idea of it. Best thing you got was Olivia. So, I mean, you have to find. We need to look specifically for creatures. You have to find a creature in these. If we don't want to splash green, you really do need a hexproof for the Soul Flare to work properly. Salumgar. The Drifting Death. This is good if your opponent goes wide with Young Pyromancer. But Elish is still usually a better option. The benefit to Salumgar is it would go wide and sweep a playset, a board of Young Peasy tokens, but not be terminated. Geist and 2 Scab Ruinators. Oh, that's what you opened. Nice. Oh, this guy's new. Oh, that's Commander. I mean, you can't, it's not playable without the Commander clause. Just looking at it for a moment. This is a 3-mana hexproof that could have First Strike or Death Touch. I wish it also gave First Strike and Death Touch to the Soul Flare. That's not how that works. I looked at some rulings. There really aren't any good that are affordable. I mean, you could run the Stalker. What are we brewing? We're brewing around Soul Flares, Shadow Sword. Basically, when and if a Gifts doesn't go my way, I wanted a way to utilize the affixes. And that's why I considered green. I see a lot of Gifts go 4-color, by the way, guys. A lot of Gifts are 4-color Gifts. And the white is the splash. They're like bug control, but the splash is for just Lingering Souls and Unburial Rites. Like, we're probably doing the deck wrong by how much. We're probably doing it wrong because I'm heavier on the white than I am the green, when really Gifts is traditionally not so much Esper as it is bug control. It's kind of more of a bug control, and then the white is the splash for the reanimate spell and maybe a Lingering Souls. So I'm probably not doing that portion. But I like Colonnade. I prefer Colonnade as the manland of choice. You could cut down on all your other white sources other than Colonnade and just run bare minimum. And then there's a couple Aqua cards occasionally, like the Sphinx, the Blood, the Burial Rites, the Souls. Am I gonna reanimate the new Eldrazi? Seems tough. Pretty sure he gets reanimated. Yeah, you bring in green, and then there's all these great choices. You've got, I think the best one still, because I've played Gifts. This color combination of Gifts I've played before. Literally, the creature you run is just Caryatid. It's a hexproof. It's good blocker. It's ramping you into the combo. Yes, it's not Wall of Omens, but I kind of prefer it to what we're trying to do with the Soul Flare. Narset is not on the right colors. I have a one of Slumgar. That kind of is on the same axis. I have some ideas. I mean, white also gives you core Firewalker though, so it's like I'm really torn to let green be the splash. I think a teeny tiny green splash is not too greedy. I think we could even cut one more decay and just call it even. And just say we're just gonna splash for 4 cards. Just the Sylvans. Just the Sylvan carry for the affix and a decay. And abrupt decay. A decay. Yeah. Because the great thing is, if you already have a piece, what you do is you gifts. I'm trying to think of a really spicy gifts pile here. Let's let green be the splash. Now, all of our fetches, what do they have in common? We've got Flooded, we've got Delta, and then we have a one of flats. If you cut the one of flats, then they both fetch for blue. You run a tropical, excuse me. You could run a breeding pool. Yeah, it's an itsy bitsy green splash, like very minute. A very minute green splash. Because I really only want to resolve one Sylvan. The other Sylvans I'd like to Soul Flare, right? That's too many Soul Flares though. I didn't mean to add that many, nearly that many. I think it's 2 to 3 maximum. I even think that that's too many. Sagu Mauler. Yeah, I did look at that creature, Snafu. It's a 6/6. Yeah. Sagu Mauler gives you the hexproof and trample at the same time. The problem is I don't want to actually, like, I'd be willing to hardcast everything. I think the Slumgar needs to go, but it gives flying and hexproof, which are both desirable traits. Honestly, a 4/4 flying hexproof is good enough. That can just win a game immediately. I really wish I could get more lifelink into the deck other than the Blood Baron. I can't. But yeah, basically that's what I wanted. Like, I feel like the deck is anemic because the format's very much Remand heavy. So you go for the gifts, and then you have these fatties that are just chilling in the yard. And I only like running the one of Burial Rites. So what happens is you can't really go off again. You could hardcast the Blood Baron, you could hardcast the Slumgar, but if they're sitting in the graveyard, they're doing nothing. They're doing absolutely nothing. But if you can Soul Flare them, all of a sudden, unless your opponent has the second Remand, you're just like, oops, well, I made something sweet anyway. Sigarda is sweet. She's expensive though. I like Sigarda. Sigarda is actually a desirable reanimate target versus Liliana. And Lily sees some play. She's not horribly expensive. She might be worth a slot. I'm going to try to work with what I have, though, first. If you're wondering, the Soul Flares were not worth any money. Because nobody's tried to do anything with it yet, I don't think. So there's the benefit to being the first to innovate with the card, hopefully. Drogskull Reaver's too expensive, Shadow Sword. I don't understand why. It's one of the sweetest, though. So the cool thing about Drogskull Reaver, if you Soul Flare it, is you get all the desirable affixes that I want in a control shell. Let me explain. So if you look at the card, you look at what affixes transfer over. Drogskull here. So Reaver, so you get the flying, you get the double strike, you get the lifelink. Those are all very desirable. The only thing it's missing is the hexproof. Now that's a 7 mana creature though. And obviously it won't pass on the there was a Soul Flare deck for standard for Dragons as Ninja. Really interesting. But no, there are other ways you could build this deck. It doesn't have to be a gifts shell. I actually initially built after I realized that you'd have to stretch the mana base and include like some hexproof, like green creatures, or buy Geist's Draft. But then you're better off just winning with the Geist's Draft. The Drog Skull is sweet. I think the problem is just how expensive. Or excuse me, it's not that expensive. It's a ticket. I take back what I said. It's not that expensive. I do really like the Drog Skull. Chromatic Flare. What format is this for? Oh, it's modern. Just messing around modern. I like Drog Skull Reaver a lot. I mean, it has a lot of the affixes I want. It doesn't die to bolt. Obviously, it's 3/5. It's very powerful. Yeah, we've been talking about Narset and Lightning Master. The problem with Narset is she's not the right colors. Like, we're Esper with a hint of green. Like, the cool thing about the Sylvans is they serve multiple functions. They're not just my ramp or my early game blocking. They are what gives the Soul Flayer its punch. They're what gives him his punch late game. His tropical punch. They give him the what he needs, that hexproof, so that the opponent just can't deal. And if you manage to get any other, not only could most commonly we'll have a 4/4 hexproof, right? Run Geist and Reavers as player 1 loot. If money was not an issue. If money was not an issue, sure. Player 1 loot. Despite how everybody's gaga over Geist, I actually don't like it very much because it gets blocked by a lot of the format. I know everybody's all gaga over Geist's Trap. I actually don't like the card. I've messed around with it. Not on Magic Online, but on other clients, and I always seem to find I never have quite enough removal to make it so that the Geist can attack without being blocked. And that's my criticism with the card, is because Geist is best on a clean board because most modern creatures are going to trade with your Geist. And sure, you hit him for 4 damage in the air, but it's like, oh, Thassa's sweet. Yeah, Thassa is sweet. Indestructible was something else I looked into, like Thassa, and I actually own the green-black god, Farika. Indestructible is also an option. It loses to Path to Exile, but it'll beat out Terminate. So, then the question becomes, do you want to run some of the gods? Like Thassa, Farika. That's a sweet, but she's still kind of pricey. People still really like her. I don't blame them. She's really good. Yeah, she's still about. Oh, she's gone down. Shoo. Okay, so 2 tickets. She's definitely an option. I mean, I could stop trying to be on the hexproof plan and just move to the. I mean, if you look at the metagame, a lot of people aren't Path decks right now, they're Terminate decks. Erebos. Erebos is sweet. What about the white-black one? Nobody likes him, right? I'm trying to remember what he does. Something about you get creatures back. So, okay, so this is a Terminate deck, this is a Terminate deck, this is a Pyroclasm deck, this is a sometimes Path deck, actually, hilariously enough. I've seen them sometimes do it. You have 2 Path decks now. Hilariously enough. One of exquisite Pyroclasm. This is a Terminate deck, this is none of those things. This one is a Path deck. Sometimes Path? Yeah. Path deck. Yeah. Suicide? That's cool.